The wheelchair sat empty beside the dance floor, abandoned for just one perfect moment as David held his daughter Emma in his arms, spinning her gently to their favorite song. Not a dry eye remained in the room. But how did a simple coffee shop encounter between a wheelchair user and an overwhelmed single father lead to this moment that would change both their lives forever? Stay with me until the end to discover how one act of kindness created a ripple effect that transformed an entire community. If this story touches your heart, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to see more stories that remind us of the extraordinary connections we can make in ordinary moments. It began on a Tuesday morning, the kind where everything seems determined to go wrong. David Parker rushed into the coffee shop, his tie askew and dark circles prominent under his eyes. At 42, he looked a decade older, worn down by the weight of raising his 8-year-old daughter alone since his wife's death 3 years ago. The morning had been particularly brutal. Emma had refused to go to school, crying that the other kids made fun of her clothes and her weird lunches. David had finally coaxed her into the classroom, but her tears haunted him as he headed to work, already 20 minutes late for an important meeting. The line at the coffee shop stretched nearly to the door. David checked his watch repeatedly, anxiety building with each passing minute. When he finally reached the counter, he fumbled with his wallet, dropping coins that scattered across the floor. As he bent to retrieve them, his briefcase slipped from his shoulder, spilling papers everywhere. Perfect. Just perfect, he muttered, feeling the stares of impatient customers behind him. Need a hand? The voice came from beside him, warm and steady. David looked up to see a woman in a wheelchair, her dark hair falling in soft waves around a face that held the kindest smile he'd seen in years. Without waiting for his response, she began gathering the papers nearest to her, stacking them neatly. "I'm Melissa," she said, handing him the collected documents. "And it looks like you're having one of those days." "David," he replied, accepting the papers with a grateful nod. "And yes, definitely one of those days." "Thank you." The barista called out impatiently, "Sir, are you ordering or not?" David turned back to the counter, flustered. "Large black coffee, please." "Make that too," Melissa added, wheeling up beside him. "And I'm paying for both." "You don't have to," David began. "I know," she interrupted with a smile. "But sometimes we all need a little kindness to break a bad day's momentum." They found themselves sharing a table by the window, David having completely abandoned any pretense of rushing to work. There was something about Melissa that made the outside world recede, her easy laugh, the thoughtful way she listened, the absence of judgment in her eyes. "So, single dad?" she asked, gesturing to the school permission slip that had fallen from his briefcase. David nodded. "For 3 years now. My wife, Anna, died of cancer. It's just been Emma and me since then, figuring things out as we go." "Emma," Melissa repeated. "Pretty name." "She's a pretty amazing kid," David said, a genuine smile breaking through his exhaustion. "Smart, funny, kind. But lately, she's been struggling. Kids can be cruel, and she's different. Quieter than most. Interested in stars and science instead of whatever 8-year-old girls are supposed to like these days." "Different is good," Melissa said firmly. "The world needs more different," says the woman who clearly embraces her own uniqueness, David replied, then immediately flushed. "I'm sorry, that was accurate," Melissa finished, laughing. "I've been in this chair since I was 19. Car accident. And yes, I've embraced it because what's the alternative? But it took time. A lot of time." David found himself telling her about Emma's struggles at school, about his own inadequacies as a father, about the constant fear that he was failing his daughter. Melissa listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or offering a small smile of understanding. "I teach art at the community center," she said when he finally ran out of words. "We have a program for kids on Saturday mornings. Maybe Emma would like to come? Sometimes finding your people makes all the difference." David hesitated. I don't know if she'd. Just think about it, Melissa said, writing her number on a napkin. No pressure. As they parted ways, David felt lighter somehow, as if sharing his burdens had physically reduced their weight. He arrived at work over an hour late, faced his boss's displeasure, and somehow didn't care as much as he should have. That night, he mentioned the art class to Emma, who responded with unexpected enthusiasm. Can I really go, Dad? This Saturday? If you want to, he said, surprised by her reaction. The art teacher at school says I'm good, Emma confided. But we never have enough time to really make anything. That Saturday, David found himself back at the community center, Emma's hand clutched tightly in his. The building was old but welcoming, with children's artwork covering nearly every wall. When they entered the classroom, Melissa was arranging supplies, her wheelchair moving smoothly between tables. You came, she exclaimed, her face lighting up at the sight of them. Emma partially hid behind David's leg, suddenly shy. Emma, this is Ms. Melissa, David said gently. She's the art teacher I told you about. Melissa wheeled closer, stopping at a respectful distance. I'm so glad you're here, Emma. We're making constellation art today, using black paper and white paint to create our own star patterns. Do you like stars? Emma's eyes widened. I love stars. I have glow-in-the-dark ones all over my ceiling. Then you're in exactly the right place, Melissa said, offering her hand. After a moment's hesitation, Emma took it. David watched as his daughter was introduced to the other children, her initial nervousness giving way to curiosity as Melissa explained the project. He had planned to leave, to use the 2 hours for errands, but found himself lingering, captivated by the way Melissa taught. She had a gift for making each child feel special, for finding something to praise in even the most haphazard artwork. When the class ended, Emma bounded over to him, clutching her constellation painting. Dad! Look what I made. It's Cassiopeia, and Ms. Melissa says it's really good and that I have a natural talent for composition, whatever that means. David looked at the painting, a surprisingly sophisticated rendering of the constellation, with subtle gradations of white against the black background. It's beautiful, Em. Can I come back next week? Please. Emma pleaded. Over Melissa's shoulder, David saw her smile. Of course you can. What began as a weekly art class soon expanded into more. Melissa invited them to a planetarium show, knowing Emma's love of stars. David reciprocated by asking if she'd join them for pizza afterward. Before long, they were spending most weekends together, visiting museums, exploring parks, or simply enjoying quiet evenings at David's house, where Melissa would help Emma with increasingly ambitious art projects while David cooked dinner. Emma blossomed under Melissa's influence. She made friends in the art class, gained confidence in her abilities, and even began standing up to the children who had once teased her. Ms. Melissa says being different is my superpower, she told David one night. She says her wheelchair is her superpower too, because it helps her see the world in ways other people can't. David found himself changing as well. The perpetual worry lines on his forehead softened. He laughed more easily, slept more soundly. For the first time since Anna's death, he felt like he could breathe fully, like the future held possibilities rather than just responsibilities. But as his feelings for Melissa deepened, so did his anxiety. One evening, after Emma had gone to bed, he and Melissa sat on his porch, watching fireflies emerge in the gathering dusk. I need to tell you something, he said, his voice tight with nervousness. Melissa turned to him, her expression open. That sounds serious. It is. I'm falling in love with you, he said simply. And it terrifies me. Why? She asked, though her eyes suggested she already knew. Because I've lost someone before. Because Emma has lost someone before. Because you're. He trailed off, unable to find the right words. Because I'm in a wheelchair, Melissa finished for him. And you're worried about what that means. David nodded, ashamed but unwilling to deny it. I don't know if I'm strong enough to face another potential loss. And I don't know if I'm capable of being what you need. Melissa was quiet for a long moment. When I first had my accident, she finally said, everyone treated me like I was made of glass. They were so afraid of hurting me that they stopped seeing me as a whole person. They saw the wheelchair first, me second. She reached for his hand. I don't need you to be anything other than what you are, David. I'm not fragile. Yes, there are things I can't do, things I need help with sometimes. But there are things you need help with too. That's what relationships are, two people supporting each other through the hard parts. And if something happens to you, he whispered, voicing his deepest fear. Something could happen to any of us, at any time. That's life, she said gently. The question is whether the joy of being together is worth the risk of loss. For me, with you and Emma, it absolutely is. Their first kiss was tentative, sweet with the promise of new beginnings. When they told Emma that Melissa would be spending more time with them, that they were becoming a family of sorts, her response was a simple, finally. I've been waiting forever. But not everyone was as accepting as Emma. David's in-laws, still grieving their daughter, were skeptical of the new relationship. Are you sure about this? His former mother-in-law asked during a tense dinner. Taking on someone with special needs? It's a lot of responsibility, especially with Emma to consider. David felt Melissa stiffen beside him. Before he could respond, Emma piped up from across the table. Ms. Melissa doesn't need taking care of. She takes care of us. She helped me make friends and be brave, and she makes Dad happy again. His eyes get all crinkly when he smiles now, like they used to when Mom was here. The table fell silent. Then Melissa reached over and squeezed Emma's hand. Thank you, sweetheart, she said softly. Later that night, after Emma was asleep, Melissa admitted how much the encounter had shaken her. It's not the first time people have assumed I'm a burden, she said. It won't be the last. Are you sure you're ready for that? For the stares, the questions, the assumptions? David took her face in his hands. I'm sure about you. The rest we'll figure out together. Their relationship deepened over the following months. David learned the practical aspects of loving someone in a wheelchair, which restaurants had proper accessibility, how to help Melissa transfer from her chair when she wanted assistance, which activities required planning and which could be spontaneous. But more importantly, he learned that these considerations were just one small part of loving Melissa, no different really than remembering Emma's allergy to strawberries or his own preference for sleeping with the window open. Melissa, in turn, learned to accept help without feeling diminished by it, to trust that David's offers came from love rather than pity. She became a true partner in raising Emma, offering a perspective that complemented David's more cautious approach to parenting. The community center where Melissa taught was facing budget cuts, threatening to eliminate the art program that had become so important to Emma and dozens of other children. Without telling Melissa, David organized a fundraiser, reaching out to local businesses, parents, and community leaders. He created a presentation highlighting the program's impact, using Emma's story as just one example of how art could transform a child's life. The night of the fundraiser, he convinced Melissa that they were simply attending a community dinner. When they arrived to find the hall packed with supporters, displays of student artwork on every wall, and a banner reading, "Art creates possibilities," Melissa turned to him in shock. "What did you do?" she whispered. "What you taught me to do," he replied. "Use my voice for something that matters." The fundraiser exceeded all expectations, securing not just the art program's future but funding for expanded accessibility throughout the community center. As David took the stage to thank everyone for coming, he found himself speaking from the heart. "A few months ago, I was a man barely holding it together, raising a daughter who deserved better than what I was able to give her. Then I met Melissa, who showed me that our limitations, whether they're physical, emotional, or circumstantial, don't define us. What defines us are the connections we make, the love we share, and the courage to keep trying even when life knocks us down. He looked directly at Melissa, who was wiping tears from her eyes. Some people might look at Melissa and see only her wheelchair. But I see the woman who taught my daughter to be proud of her differences. I see the artist who brings beauty into every room she enters. I see the person who made me believe in second chances. That night, as they drove home with a sleepy Emma in the back seat, Melissa turned to David. "I have something to ask you," she said, her voice uncharacteristically nervous. "Anything." "Emma's school dance is coming up, the father-daughter one. She mentioned it to me, said she wasn't sure if you'd want to go." David frowned. "Of course I'd go if she wanted me to." "She does want you to," Melissa said. "But she also asked if I would come." "She said," Melissa's voice caught. "She said she knows I'm not her mom, but that if I wanted to dance with her too, she'd like that." David felt his throat tighten with emotion. "What did you tell her?" "That I'd love nothing more, but that I wasn't sure how it would work. With the wheelchair." David was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he smiled. "We'll figure it out. We always do." The night of the dance arrived, Emma resplendent in a blue dress that Melissa had helped her choose. The school gymnasium had been transformed with twinkling lights and paper stars hanging from the ceiling, a touch that made Emma squeal with delight. David danced with his daughter first, her small feet balanced on top of his as they moved around the floor. When the song ended, Emma looked over at Melissa, who sat watching them from the edge of the dance floor, her wheelchair decorated with the same twinkling lights that adorned the gym. "Your turn," Emma said, walking over and taking Melissa's hand. Melissa hesitated, looking around at the other families. "Emma, I'm not sure if..." "Please." Emma's eyes were hopeful. "Dad and I practiced." David approached, kneeling beside Melissa's wheelchair. "We did practice. But only if you want to." Melissa looked from David to Emma, then nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "I want to." With gentle movements that they had indeed rehearsed at home, David helped Melissa from her wheelchair. He supported her weight as she stood, one arm around her waist, the other holding her hand. Emma stepped close, wrapping her arms around both of them. The wheelchair sat empty beside the dance floor, abandoned for just one perfect moment as David held both Melissa and Emma, the three of them swaying gently to the music. Around them, other families stopped to watch, moved by the sight of this unconventional family finding their own way to dance. Later, as they were preparing to leave, the school principal approached them. "That was beautiful," she said simply. "Would you consider, both of you, coming to speak to our students about different kinds of families, different kinds of abilities? I think they could learn a lot." Melissa looked at David, who nodded. "We'd be honored," she replied. As they drove home, Emma fell asleep in the back seat, clutching a star-shaped balloon from the dance. David reached over and took Melissa's hand.